And we are live. Look at that.
I think so.
I believe we are. We should be live. We'll find out. People will start saying things in the chat, and then we'll know for sure. It'll be a fact. Screen's down here. Camera's up here. As has sled angle, so I'll straighten that out, and then we'll get
live here on.
All right, Instagram. If you're watching already, best place to watch this is on YouTube. Honestly, that's what we optimize for. That being said, we'll answer questions on both. Today's topic is going to be about due diligence because we have seen millions lost in poor due diligence. So, starting back from Union and Moses Lake, it's been a road week, which is why I'm getting all the media realigned, but we are launching live. Hello, YouTube and Instagram over to my right.
So today we're talking about due diligence because there's a lot of people that go into real estate deals. I have a lot of friends and I've seen people that get into the space and they think they're going to strike it rich and they have a lot of things pop up. We've had a lot of things pop up, whether it's septic, electrical issues, furnace issues, tenant issues. There's a lot of issues when it comes to buying real estate, especially when you're buying big pieces of real estate with lots of zeros on the end of it. It's really important to make sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's. It's just super important. So we're going to start out today with what should you look for when it comes to due diligence.
Now, before we get too deep into that, though, I do want people to get into the chat and take some time to warm it up. So let's answer our first question and let's really dive deep into the due diligence. So from this week's comments, loading them up now, but I did save one in the pipeline. Someone had a due diligence related question, which is, hey, I just closed my first deal and found out that almost no one's actually paying. How could I avoid this? This ties into the topic, but they got absolutely fried on the due diligence part. How would you avoid that one thing of checking for non-pay?
Okay, if you want to check for non-pays, the way you do it, you're going to get what's called a tenant ledger. And your tenant ledger is going to show all your tenants, all their payment history. Now, it's one thing to take this and just look at it and say, okay, people are actually paying. Problem is, buyers are liars and sellers are worse. Sellers will lie to you. It's just a fact. Now, how much they lie to you, I don't know. I don't know who you're working with. However, people lie. So it's really important to also check that and back it up with bank statements. Banks are a lot less likely to lie. So you can go get bank statements from the owner. They're going to get it directly from their banker. And that should line up to a zero. The nice thing about accounting is the magic number is zero. Everything zeroes out. All the rents collected on the ledger are reflected in the deposit reports for your bank statements. You know that the seller's telling you the truth and that they've actually been collecting the accurate rent. What else you can get is a stop a letter where the tenant will sign off and say, this is the rent, this is the deposit, and that should all line up with rent roll and your bank statements.
Okay, the next question was, this is from Ronald Christian. Hello, love your work. If I have 130K to 160K cash, should I be looking for something in the 800K to $1 million range, multifamily?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you got 130 grand, 10% down, you're buying $1.3 million in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love putting 10% down. I just wrote up a 14 plex. We're putting, I think it's 15% down. But if you could be under 20 and you can get non-recourse seller finance debt, that is just a phenomenal debt product.
It is. And we actually had less money than that when we were buying buildings at the $2 million price. I think between the two of us, I had about $100,000. Cody had somewhere between like $0 and $10. and we came in about a $2 million asset. So you should really just be looking at opportunities that you're comfortable taking down and maybe just a little bit past what you're comfortable.
Now we got a question in the chat. Hey guys, I'm 17 trying to get into real estate. My mom's actually friends with Sully. Nice. Oh, no. We just had Sully on the channel. I've been doing wholesaling for a while now, but wanted to get into the rental game. What should I start with? Well, you should probably stop wholesaling. Now the pitch of wholesalers is that you need to get cash. You don't need money. That is the least important part of any deal. You start with the deal. You find an opportunity that you want your name behind. It's a great property, but the only problem is your name's not on title. You find a great deal, then you line up the debt. In this case, we're talking seller finance debt because if you're 17, you probably don't qualify for a bank loan. Just odds are good. So you find the deal, then you line up the debt. And when you turn 18, then you figure out, okay, what's the money down going to be? It doesn't have to be your cash. You borrow it, equity partner. There's lots of ways to structure it, but you just have to make sure that you start with the deal and you don't add steps. You don't need to wholesale to buy multifamily. The quickest way to be an investor is to invest.
Any deal worth wholesaling, deal worth buying. Your time, in my opinion, your time is better spent finding how do I buy this deal or how would someone buy this deal? If someone's going to own it and you want to get into real estate, might as well be you. People like to add that step. And it's a really common advertising ploy of, hey, add this step, become a wholesaler. A lot of online gurus will promote that because they want you to find deals for them to buy. I hate that, but it's just part of the industry. If you really want to play the game, you got to play the game. There's no way around it.
Yeah, if you want to be a player, play this game, you need to go buy real estate. Just make sure you don't have steps. It is super simple to buy properties. It's a little difficult not to lose them. So you structure everything on cash flow, but it takes just as much effort to sell a contract does to actually fulfill that end of the contract and buy it yourself.
By the way, we're trying to streamline the questions for our preloaded. We like to go through some of the YouTube chat. We're pulling some aside. You can also ask us questions direct on Instagram. I try to check mine all the time. And yes, we get a lot of messages. I do actually go through all of mine every day. I clear it. So at Christian Osgood, if you guys have questions you want asked here and you think about it midweek, instead of putting a note aside or waiting for Wednesday, just message me at Christian Osgood and say, hey, question for Whiteboard Wednesday. We will answer it at the start of our call. You have a question over there?
Oh, let's say in the chat asked, you use realtor contracts. When I'm writing up a property, I am a real estate agent in the state of Washington. So I use my NWMLS, Northwest Listing Service forms, because I'm licensed. If you're not, you just work with an agent who is, and you can use those legal documents. Those are already drafted up, and realtors just plug and play the numbers in the already created legal documents.
One more question from here, and then we're going to get into our keynote question. So the question I had is, do you recommend, oh, this ties right in.
Great.
Do you recommend that I get a real estate license? I'm going to tell you right now, this is the same answer as the wholesaling question.
Only if that's what you want to pursue as a career. The short answer is no. Being a real estate agent is not the ticket to wealth. It is not the key to buying off market real estate. It's not the way to get ahead. The fact that I'm a real estate agent is not what made me successful. Christian dropped his license because just to prove it to everybody online that's saying, well, you both have licenses. He doesn't need it. I don't need it, but I kept it because it's easier for one of us just to have it. You definitely don't need it. If you want to pursue that as a career, go for it.
And if you're going to do it, be excellent at it. There's so many brokers who go, hey, I just kind of do this on the side to invest. If you're going to do anything, it's worth doing all the way. If you want to be a broker, go all the way. And there is money to be made. Buying deals, getting commissions, buying your own deals. You can make money. That should not be your business plan, though, if you want to move forward. Now we're going to roll in to the keynote question. If everyone on all platforms can do us a favor, hit that like button. If you like it, more people will watch it. If more people watch it, we get more and better questions. We appreciate it. What is our keynote question?
Well, today we're talking about, okay, what should you do for due diligence? I've got friends right now that are suffering in the real estate game because their real estate agent did no due diligence for them. They're getting burned. I'm seeing it in every market in America right now. People are just struggling. They don't look at bank statements. They don't get estoppel certificates. They're not looking at utility bills. They're not verifying. It's great to trust people, but you have to verify what folks are telling you. So just a list of docs. You should look at the lease agreement. That's a pretty standard, simple. However, problem is people can lie on lease agreements. You should also look at tenant ledgers. This shows all deposits, all rent payments and utility payments that your residents, that your tenants have ever made. Really important to look at that. But again, this should all line up with the leases. It should line up with the rent roll. It should line up with the estoppel letters where tenants sign off and say, this is what we're paying. This is what our deposit was. This is how long we've been living here. The tenant signs off on it, not the owner. All that should add up and be a zero balance account with your statements, your bank statements. Bank statements are not just a screenshot of a bank account. If you're not familiar with what this is, they have a print off with your bank. This is with every bank in America. They press print, and it's going to be a report of every transaction that goes on in that bank account. You can do this for extended periods of time, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. You can do it for a monthly basis. But everything should zero out. Zero is a magical number in accounting, which says everything adds up. Yes, $4,361 in deposits. That should line up with the rent roll. That should line up with what they're saying in the tenant ledger. And you can make sure that this property owner is not lying to you. This happened to a lot of people right now, all over the states. I've seen it. And now they're like, oh, well, 9 of my 14 tenants aren't paying. I was like, well, what did you check for due diligence? Well, we didn't check. Like, oh, that's probably one reason why.
Well, one question I get all the time is, when do I start this process? Like, do we start checking these before we finalize the offer? Is this after a letter of intent? How does this work? So for any of the due diligence items, that's for a deal that you're under contract on, just order of operations. You find the deal, you get the inputs you can. If they show you great documentation, awesome. If they have terrible documentation, just know that you have a stricter due diligence period. You work on your assumptions and what's been told to you, and you're going to verify everything in due diligence. So you write up the offer, you get an accepted offer, you're now in mutual agreement. Immediately, you are requesting all the docs you need. I see this happen all the time where people do a 21-day feasibility. And I've been guilty of this once. On day 14, I'm like, oh, shoot, I haven't reviewed those documents. I'm running out of time. Just day one, you go under contract, then you go, okay, I'm sending a formal request for the bank statements and everything that I need. Leases, let's get to estoppel letters. I want to schedule a walkthrough of units. You go through each of the pieces as soon as humanly possible to give yourself time. One thing that we build into the contracts is our feasibility period starts, it's usually within 1 to 2 days of receiving the docs, or it can be immediately. But if you negotiate a 3-week period for due diligence, I set that timeline in the special clauses for it. This starts after we have received these docs. It's usually leases, rent roll, bank statements.
Yep. Now, that works in with this. Is it possible to get an investor not only pay for the down payment, but the inspection and earnest money deposit as well? Absolutely. That said, don't borrow money you can't afford to pay back. So if you're bringing in money from an investor, make sure you have a way to pay them back, and don't leave people holding the bag. That's just a really important lesson if you want to operate good business. The way that we can mitigate risk on this is I have my earnest money due, especially in the beginning when I didn't have any money. Today I've got a little more money than I did 3 years ago. But I make sure my earnest money is due after I waive feasibility. So we have that 21-day period to look over all the docs that they provided. So they get us all the documentation. Maybe it's in 2 to 3 days. I get 21 days to look at it. And then after I accept feasibility, and I said, okay, this deal looks fantastic. Then only then is earnest money, and the deal is all a lie, and you have to get your money back. It goes to arbitration or litigation. It's just a big hassle. Even if you're in the right, it can take a long time to get your money back. So we send that after we approve the deal, after we make sure the financing is lined up. And that way, if you need to get it from an investor, you're more likely to actually get the deal closed.
Closing the deal feels like everything, but when you close the deal and you didn't do enough due diligence, that's where you get in trouble. And we started seeing this with people all over our network. I think historically over the last 10 years, we've seen the market go up and up and up and up. And a lot of people have been saved by refinancing, low interest rates, high appreciation for a full decade. So a lot of the kind of loosey-goosey, like, well, I just got emotional, and so I closed the deal because I committed to closing it. I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot of people lose properties or in the process of losing properties, having to fire sale things. We're seeing wholesalers across the market, even some of the big names. I'm not going to name drop anyone here, but like big name wholesalers. I'm hearing from their, the biggest name wholesalers. I'm hearing from their clients, hey, distributions have been low. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, you're right. Syndicators, the big syndicators, some of their deals where they got a little loose on due diligence or made assumptions on debt. I'm getting reports from their investors. Look, distributions are low, communications low or non-existent. We don't know what's happening.
And then put thousands apart. That's not a good place to be if your assumptions are just flat out wrong.
Yep. Due diligence will help you protect those assumptions, because now we're entering a market, which I think is a great, healthy thing, where your assumptions are not going to be magically saved if you're wrong. There's no more magic. You actually have to do good fundamental deals.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you can buy anything in any market.
All right. We got a 2-part question. I only see one part in this chat. Can you structure the operating agreement to define member ownership? Yes, that is the goal of an operating agreement. And you have your attorney draft this up. But the operating agreement is supposed to define membership and the ownership structure. What are the obligations? Are there any special allocations? You're not making that. Your attorney is. However, you get to dictate to the attorney how you want that to look, whether you're a 20% owner, a 90% or 100% owner, if it's sole ownership LLC. But that is for you to dictate to the attorney, and then you pay them, and then they give you a document that outlines what your objective is, as long as your objective is legal. You can actually back it up with paperwork.
We'll get through a couple of the YouTube ones, then we'll hop back to Instagram. We'll just bounce between the chats. Yeah. If you guys want to make our lives easier and you're on Instagram, feel free to join us, Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategy. By the way, we finally hit 10,000 subs. Party. We appreciate you guys. But if you want to hop over there, that makes it a little bit more streamlined to read the questions, but we will answer both as well as we can.
All right.
So first question, actually, Daylon said congratulations on 10K.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. Good to see you here. Cody and Christian, how are you? Well, I'm going to start with that question.
Good.
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How did you pick which building you call when you first got started? Oh, I love this question.
I called everybody.
Yep.
I called every player until I became one. And now I own more multifamily buildings than the housing authority in Grant County. I called everybody until I became one of them. Didn't matter if they had a duplex, a fourplex, a 20plex, a 15, it didn't matter. I called them because I wanted to be where they were at.
And there's enough calls and enough activity, enough conversations and meetings with owners now where we write off, like we wrote offers yesterday, we wrote an offer today. We
All
just
seller
bought.
finance.
Yeah.
We just bought a deal, 10-day close, because we wanted to buy one more seller finance 10% down deal before the year ended. Closed on the 30th, the last day we could have.
She wrote an agreement that says Cody can be the sole signer for this agreement. We did the due diligence together, but I was in Mexico. So I got a text from Cody while I was in a pool that says, congratulations, you own another duplex. As you get your systems down, if you just focus on, hey, if they own multifamily, I want to meet them. Treat them as owners, not sellers, just meet all the owners. We're basically on Google Maps looking for roofs that are larger than the roof of a house. Yep. It's probably multifamily then. Click on it, find the owner. We have a whole video online how to do that. That is how we play the game. Excellent question. Okay, this is from, I'm going to maybe butcher this, Bajan Sonic. Bajan.
All right.
I'm going my best guess. What is the process for seller finance when you don't have assets to back it up?
Okay, so when you're financing something, I bought my very first deal. There's a few pieces of collateral, and the first one, if you don't have anything to your name, which is how I was, you have the asset you're purchasing. If that's the only thing you've got, that's the only thing you got. That's how I started. So there's these instruments, for financial instruments called the promissory note, and then there's a deed of trust, and your attorney's going to draft these up. But you have a promissory note, which is your promise to pay. And the simplest way I've ever been able to find a deed of trust is the seller trusts you're going to pay them, but in case you don't, they're going to place a lien against your asset. Meaning that when you buy their deal in a lien theory state, title will transfer to you, a seller finance deal. However, they're going to put a lien against the asset. And this could be what's called first lien. You can do first lien, second lien, but liens are equivalent to loan. And when you sell the asset, you typically have to pay out these loans. It's recorded with the title company. And so people can look up and see if you have debt or not. It's really important to note that this is what protects them. A promissory note is only as good as the backing behind it. If I wrote an IOU, what's it worth? Well, if there's no collateral, it's worth nothing. If my word means nothing to you, then that's not worth anything because you can't enforce it. However, if they put a lien against title, now that asset is what protects them. So in the beginning, the seller finance note is typically structured where they're protected by that asset. And they might have covenants that say you have to maintain the asset, you have to keep it up, you can't let it get super deferred because they don't want to take it back in rough condition. But take care of the stuff you buy and you're fine. That's how it's structured.
Yep. The asset that you're buying is typically the collateral. So you have to make sure that you're buying, especially that first deal, you really do have to be at a price point where there's some equity in it to back the note, especially if you're bringing in other investors, because you have to protect their interest as well as the seller.
So here on Instagram, can we get a sneak peek? What's your guys' next big move in the real estate empire game? We're going to Dave Ramsey this stuff. Pay everything off.
A lot of Kiyosaki fans, and there's a lot of.
I'm a Kiyosaki fan.
I am too.
I've had breakfast with him a couple times.
Yeah. Not Dave yet, but I'm also, I like a lot of Dave's principles. There's one problem with Dave Ramsey. People rail on him.
There's not a problem with the problem with how he does his business.
Well, I don't know. There might be a problem with Dave.
I don't know.
With Dave Ramsey's business model, it works because he's insanely high income. If you can earn a whole bunch of money, you can buy stuff with cash. In fact, when we earn money, we invested in real estate. That duplex you just mentioned that we just bought, we did out of our little earned income because we earned enough to do a 10% down payment. However,
it's $40,000 down.
We didn't buy a house in cash. what we did is we used leverage to buy our way for enough properties, enough cash flow, enough income leveraged to live the life we want to live.
And then we take all the income and we pay it all off. So what we're doing next, we're going to pay off the resort. After we pay off the resort, we're going to pay off all the multifamily Christian and I own 50-50. And then we're just going to start paying cash for huge assets, and we'll save up some money and buy big deals like 200, 300, 400 units as a JV, just Christian and I 50-50, no investors. We'll buy with agency, non-recourse debt, because we'll have the net worth to back those loans, and then we'll pay those off. But that's the play.
Just insert this. We missed a step, and we don't like to add steps, but we
don't like to.
You never miss a step. We actually missed a step in our game plan. So this is going to be the first place I ever share this. We did this whole thing of build, then stabilize, then pay off the debt. Like just build, stabilize, debt hammer. We learned that stabilization is a huge project. We already knew that. However, after you stabilize, before you debt hammer, you actually want to go through and optimize. So I want to go through the differences really quick. Build is pretty self-explanatory.
Build your portfolio.
Everyone watching, I'm assuming, since it's people mostly follow us on something, most people know what we bought because that's what we're on Bigger Pockets for. Yep. It's like, woo, we bought a bunch of stuff. Good. That's phase one, pretty self-explanatory. Build what you want to build. Stabilize means you're probably going to have some problems in there. Seller financing, like you can absolutely go and buy only nice building seller financing. That's not what we did. We bought some very nice buildings, the resort, that duplex.
Yeah, the duplex, very nice.
We bought really junky buildings that are a huge project. The 12-plex that we've decked out now, almost completely done project. 1 or 2 more interior renos to go, but beautiful building now. The 38-plex, which I'm going to say is 55% to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
And it started at -15, but I mean we've made a lot of progress. But when you're buying these, stabilization for us on that was we got the income up, we refinanced it, then we actually moved some people out and destabilized it so that we can now go in and optimize it, put the tenant mix we want in there, and do our next set of projects. Optimization is where we add another $20,000, $30,000 a month of cash flow by optimizing the portfolio.
Yeah, 20 to 30,000 a month goes a long ways. Now, originally we had our steps that were you build, you stabilize, so you get people paying, and then you debt hammer. The problem with that is it'll take like 9 years. If we optimize it before we debt hammer, we can reduce that down to 5 years. We get an extra 30 grand a month in cash flow. And when we pay it all off, then we've got 6 figures a month in cash flow. Most people miss that step though. They don't optimize. They just keep leveraging up, or they try and pay stuff off before they're really maximizing the potential of their assets. And it just adds a lot of time. And most people just want to buy back their time. So it's just a misstep that we completely missed.
Yeah. The power of your debt hammer depends on what you build in optimization. Optimization, if you want a fun visual, is the actual building of the debt hammer. Stabilization means, hey, I own it. I know how I'm never going to lose it. Right there, you have a rubber mallet that you can start whacking your portfolio with. We want to build a Mjolnir. We want Thor's hammer to just whack the crap out of this debt. That is one of the biggest projects we're working on this year, is build the hammer so that we can kill all the debt. Then we'll be a cash company and have liquidity and all the good stuff.
How do we manage over 100 goals?
Well, that has been tricky. We had the wrong property manager who stole money, so we fired them, started our own property management company. Then from there, we had to build out teams and employees within that.
Yep.
We bought a resort that came with 9 employees. We had to re-optimize those, have some layoffs, have some turnover, fill new seats. And that's normal with an acquisition of someone else's business. But the big task in that for me, I think the hardest part was finding the right contractors and the right people who exist outside your org. We got hosed on the first contractor we used, who laid Cody's roof upside down, just torched down. He had it so the water drains under torched down.
Not ideal.
I don't have an engineering degree, but I believe that is incorrect.
That is wrong.
Okay, good. Then we had a contractor who underbid the project, charged 50% over, and we are now paying a better contractor to redo pretty much anything they touch that has anything to do with ventilation, plumbing, or electric.
Yeah, may or may not have a legal team contact our old contractor.
It is really hard to manage a lot of units, and I don't want to sugarcoat that. probably the biggest challenge financially, as far as just like it costs a ton and it's not guaranteed to be right.
You have to systematize everything so that if you die, like if I die, we need the businesses to not die. Because if it goes to my family and they're working Christian, or we both die in a plane crash, what happens to Moses Lake? Right now, Moses Lake would hurt a little bit on the type of buildings we own, because the inventory would just dry up. We have a lot of that inventory. We're taking it from C to B. A lot of the one beds are just off the market. We're talking with the housing authority about that. If we can't find one beds, like, oh, that's us. Let's help work together. Our business is not quite systematized to where if we died, it would be fine. When you're managing a whole bunch of units, you have to figure out how do you get it to run better without you. If you're gone, keep going. That's what we're figuring out in real time.
If you want to get a great piece of insight on how best to manage a big portfolio, we've gotten so much better. We have the right team. I truly believe our current team of contractors are the best that you can get. We have excellent employees. We have excellent systems. Our bookkeeping is off the charts good. However, if you want to get started on this, Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, a little smaller YouTube channel. I've never seen anyone self-manage over 100 units as well as he does. He is the channel to watch if you want to figure out how to property manage your own portfolio to the absolute highest level.
All right, let's start banging out these questions.
Let's do it. Jeff can ask an off-topic question.
You can always ask a question, but you just may not answer it if it's too off-topic.
Yep. I'm assuming that question will show up a little bit later. So Jeff will be looking for that question. Reinvest. When doing owner meetings, do you drive to Moses Lake every time? If so, where are y'all based?
Yeah, I drive to Moses Lake every time. I'm based out of Seattle. I was based out of Tacoma, so it was a 3-hour drive. Now it's a 2.5-hour drive. When I got started, I was making 6-hour commutes, 3 and 3, just to meet with people. Sacrifice so you don't have to later.
At the inn at Moses Lake, which is my favorite inexpensive hotel in the whole city.
We did that last night.
Yep.
I just got back. Back last night at 11 o'clock at night. I'm going back Friday evening, and I'm going to be there through Monday.
Yep.
Knocking this stuff out.
And I'll be in Union doing the same thing on the other part of our portfolio. We're divide and conquer, which we rarely do. Yeah, I like hanging out with Cody, but we have more projects than
fun. How many calls did you do per day when you got started? I didn't quantify in the amount of calls. I just called everybody till I started talking with them. Not everybody picked up, so I just keep calling. And it's not about the number of calls, it's about how many times you actually talk to people, how many coffee meetings are you getting. Number of calls is an irrelevant metric for me. It's okay, how many people did I talk with? How many times did I grab coffee? How many relationships did I start? Those are the things that I would look for, but I called everybody just about in Moses Lake. And a broker calls me and said, hey, do you want to buy this property? I'm like, oh, I know that owner, let's chat. And I've done that multiple times, and that's won me deals because I just know who the people are.
And phone calls are great because not everyone shows up at every real estate meeting, right? But there's also, I've never seen a market where real estate people don't meet up. Real estate plays like a board game. All of the big owners that I know refer to it as playing the game. No one wants to quit. It's super fun. A little bit of a barrier of entry to get in, but once you're in, you're in. The easiest way I've found to network is just be at the events and talk to people. Because you get to start with face-to-face. If you can start with the coffee meeting, you cut out a whole bunch of work. Do that and then call some owners. And they'll introduce you to the other owners. I've had jobs where I made 120 calls a day, and that was just my normal day. And now I did that for 4 years. Just get in, make your calls, get your sales, get out. This, not that many calls. 10 calls a day, I promise everyone could do that. And that, I think, is a really good starting point. If you call 10 people, you reach 2, you book 1 or 2 coffee meetings a week, 52 weeks in a year, you meet 100 owners in a market in 1 year, making 10 calls a day. That's not a insane task to pull off.
Now back to the Instagram. You elaborate on what an estoppel certificate is. And who do you request it from? Well, you request it from, if it with a real estate agent, request it from them. They're going to request it from the owner. But the owner does not sign this document. The tenants sign this document. And what it is it's just an outline of this is what the rent is, and it's blank. So you can look up what it is online, just get a blank document. You can also get one from an attorney. But the tenant's going to fill it out. They're going to sign and certify saying, this is the rent, this is the deposit. Now, the reason this is important, I was working on buying a 9-plex from some. They said the rent's for $725 day one for studios. You go to the tenants and they all sign saying that the rent was $450. There's a little bit of a difference there. I take that back to the owner, say, okay, what the heck? Please show me bank statements. And then I see that the rents were actually $450 and the seller was just trying to lie. They forged ledgers, forged all these different things. It's really important that you actually verify that you get the tenants to sign off saying this is what it is, this is what my deposit is. Another reason, it's not just for the rents. The owner may say, oh, the deposits are $400 or the deposits are $1,000 and then the deposits are not $1,000. If the tenants say my deposit was $1,000 and the owner says it was $400, now you're at the difference. And now it becomes a lawsuit and that could take a year. I just had to do that with my property manager and it took 12 months to get my deposits back. Painful. It was awful. There's still 5 figures of deposits. Every time a tenant left, I just had to shell it out because I didn't have the money from my previous property management company. So really important to get those signed.
We had 2 people recently, just for practical application. We have a friend who bought 14 units fairly recently. Turns out 9 of the people weren't paying. Estoppel letters you could have at least verified the amount of rent. Bank statements, you could have lined up the payments, what people said, compare that to the actual stated income. If all those were consistent, you wouldn't have a problem. That was an easy to catch thing if you got those 3 documents and compared them all to each other. Magical number is 0. If you balance everything out and there's no delta between them, nobody lied.
Now, back to the chat. When's your next mastermind at the resort?
Oh, great
That's
question.
not this weekend. The following, we're January 20th, 21st, 22nd. We've got guest speakers coming in that are not only just, we're going to be talking about creative finance, but we've got professionals that are coming. We're going to have real estate agents that have repped us on seller finance deals, that own their own really cool deals, out of state, in state. We've got Airbnb people, and then we've got lenders who can help you put it together the conventional way.
Lenders I've ever done conventional loans with, but we have brokers and lenders on site. So if you were looking for deals or looking to get into the game, they're going to talk about how they do business and best practices. But I mean, feasibly, you can go there and line up your entire deal.
How do you cover attorney costs when investing with no money? Well, it's going to cost money. So you might have to throw it on a credit card in the beginning. If you have to raise the money down and you have someone who's going to help you front that money, whether it's through actually being an equity partner or a loan, if you don't have any cash, you still have to pay the bills with money. How do you pay your debt? With money. How do you pay bills? With money. It has to come from somewhere. So it's either coming from your equity partner or it's coming from a loan that you're going to borrow.
Doesn't add to that. That is how you do it.
All righty. Let's see. Can you discuss when you pay off debt, makes sense or not? If we are locked in at lower rates, would it make sense to pay off? It depends. The debt snowball is something I love from Dave Ramsey. I love the idea of doing debt snowball, increasing cash flows over time. Problem is, when most people do their debt snowball, they do their debt-free screen with Dave Ramsey. They're calling and saying, hey, I paid off $47,000 of credit card debt. Great. What are you left with? On your debt snowball, when you think about, okay, what should I pay off? When should I pay it off? I've got a car loan, 3.25%. That's great. I'll pay that off and I'll be happy. However, what are you left with when everything's all said and done? The reason that we do our debt hammer last is because we build the system first. So we build our portfolio. We've got over 130 rental spaces right now. We have offers out on probably another 70. So that put us at 200 total. That's great. Then we stabilize everything, which we're doing in real time. Then we optimize it. We get the cash flow up. We get everything done, and our total income is upwards of $250,000 a month at that point. We pay everything off. You debt snowball. What are you left with? If you just have a loan and you could pay it off now, great. But if you're not left with enough, then I wouldn't opt to pay it off right now. I would opt to keep building the portfolio to where you could self-sustain. We can both live on $250,000 a month. That's way more money than we could ever blow. We don't want to play the game twice. If you do your debt snowball too early, it takes a bunch of time out of your life, and then you have to build again. I would rather do the build first, then stabilize, optimize it. And if at that point, you're good, pay everything off. If you're not at that point where you're good and you have enough money coming in to live the life you want to live, there's no reason to completely wipe the debt free, because that's going to take a whole bunch of time, and it adds time to your life cycle where now all of a sudden you have to work longer, harder to get the same result. Just build it once.
Comeback stories are really fun. Dave has a great one. You can always come back, and that's, people do burn out, and you can rise from the ashes. It's just a lot cooler when you don't do that.
Yeah. Make sure if you're going to do all the payoff stuff, that whatever you're left with when it's all paid off is what you really want. Because if you're going to just pay it off just to leverage again in real estate, you're paying one thing off just to borrow more money. And just, you're going to borrow money, just borrow the money, build what you want, and then pay it all off at once. Don't repeat cycles.
Amazing. Sorry for the side text. I think I just hired someone via text. So sorry, Cody. We have more employees.
Okay. Christian's really good at spending my money, and his wife's really good at spending his money.
These ones are 1099, so they only spend them. They only cost the money they bring in.
What advice do you guys have? Learned anything or everything that you've learned? Figure out what you want to do. Be with the people who have done it, and then don't get up from that table. There are players all over planet Earth that have done what you want to accomplish. It's one thing to get to the table. It's just like when I met with Kiyosaki and Cardone. It's one thing to get to the table. How do you not get kicked out of that table? If you walk up, you sit down, are they going to let you stay? I have a buddy who just met with Cardone, and he name dropped us because we helped him get to where he's at. And Grant mentioned that he still remembers me. And then he knows a Christian. I've met with Grant a couple of times, and I've talked with him one-on-one. If he forgot who I was, I'm not at the table anymore. It's one thing to get there. It's another thing to stay there. So if you want to play this game, you want to really advance in the space, you got to figure out, how do I get to the table with the people who've done what I want to do? And how do I not get kicked off from that table? How do you get them to remember you? Because if they don't remember you, you can't work together. It's just not going to work. The relationship won't work.
That's the advice we can give. Everyone who asks how we get started, that is the answer. Identify what you want to do. Find the people who've done it. Let's hit some of the YouTube chat here.
Let's do it.
From Dividend Dave, one of our all-time favorites.
Dave.
What do you do if the sellers want a ton of cash down on their seller finance deal? Any strategies?
Well, you can't write the check. You might just have to borrow it. Another thing you could do if they want a ton of cash down is you can have the seller finance in second position, and you can get a conventional lender. Let's say they want 60% down. Just go get a conventional lender to finance the 60% firstly. And then that could be private. It could just be conventional. And then you have the seller finance in secondly position, as long as your commercial lender will allow you to have a second. And you can buy it with zero money down. They're getting the bulk of their money. And they would typically allow you to go in second if they believe the property is worth it. Now, if they think they're way over selling it, then their backing is not going to be good. Then it's like, well, you don't think it's worth it. Why would you want us to buy for this?
I think people do this 100%, like just 100% finance from bank to 60, and then they borrow 40 from the seller. I've also seen it done where the bank does 60 and they borrow 45 from the seller. They get paid 5% on their deal. I've seen people do that. However, note a majority of banks will want to see some skin in the game. There's a lot of banks will just have a policy that says, I want to see money leave your hands because that gives us confidence that you care enough about this deal not to run into the ground. They want to see that you have risk. You probably, not always, it's possible to do without this, but you probably have to put at least 10% down. It can still be private capital, but they'll want to see money come from your bank account to the deal at some point. Yep. Just be aware. From Daylon, what are your guys' thoughts on working with preferred equity programs?
Which preferred equity programs? I've never done that. I've never done it, so I don't have any thoughts.
Yep. I don't know either. I know like preferred equity partnerships, different ways to structure those. Not quite sure about the different programs. If anyone has any knowledge, though, post in the chat at some point. I'll get that far in the chat.
Educate us. We haven't played that game.
Yep. Also from Daylon, what are your guys' thoughts on seller financing the down payment in second position? Had a few lenders explain that after the 08, there are restrictions for mortgage companies.
Well, there definitely are restrictions for mortgage companies. A lot of conventional financing our financing package for the 38 plex, because we took that to credit union, they don't allow seconds. There's a lot of clauses and a lot of mortgages called no further encumbrances. You can't further encumber the property. And there's some people that try and cheat that, do silent seconds. By the way, those are illegal. Don't do that. It's really important to just know what your loan program is. We can't do a second behind our, like we had Point Credit Union do our 58. We're talking with them about more stuff, but we might not work with them further on other stuff. They don't allow seconds unless it's with them. They're willing to give us a second behind their first mortgage. There are always exceptions to rules, but you have to know what the rules are because you don't want to violate the rules. That's how you lose things. It's one thing to buy it, another thing to never lose it. There are going to be lenders who allow you to do seconds. There are going to be lenders who allow you to do HELOCs and rentals, but not everyone's going to give you those. You just have to find who the players are, who the lenders are that will allow you to do these things. Most will not. Most don't like to get outside of the box. Most don't like to get creative. However, there are going to be creative lenders in almost every market. I haven't proven that for a fact, but I'm confident that you can get it done in just about any market.
Absolutely. Would you guys recommend a longer feasibility period for larger projects? I generally would. We've done some big ones though in 21-day feasibilities. If I remember correctly, we do 21 days on the Robin Hood Resort.
Yeah, we did 21.
And that's a pretty big transaction.
That was our biggest dollar amount deal.
However, we had a very, very, very involved seller. And so I was very confident that we could sit down with them and figure it all out. And we did.
Yeah, we figured it out.
Cody lived on site with them. So I figured that would not be a super hard task. We knocked that one out. But like we're looking at multi-hundred unit deals in Texas. Are we going to do them? We'll find out. But we've looked at a few. And if we had a deal like that, I have to book flights. I have to walk the properties.
Yeah, there's 1,100 unit seller finance portfolio that's off market. We're not doing 21 days on that. We got to do a little bit of driving. That's going to take a lot of time. So stuff like that, we'd probably opt for 40 days.
45.
Josh Southern said, who's a good property manager in Moses Lake? Josh, you got my number.
Yeah,
we manage for Josh for that. Josh is awesome. He's got a baller duplex.
In fact, if you're watching this and you're in Washington State, we are expanding. We have our systems down for third party. Having been through a lot of the, I'm watching my language for YouTube. A lot of the BS that you go through with property managers, a lot of them don't own properties and don't manage like they own.
Ariana's kids are watching. Don't swear.
Okay, I tried very hard. So what we do and our commitment is, I actually, shameless plug, I want to expand our multifamily business. We have got to a position where we can handle more business on the west side of Washington. We already manage quite a bit. If you're Moses Lake, we are like us and one other firm are the firms. And I just know for a fact our bookkeeping is better.
Yeah. We've hired out a lot. We've hired out our media. If you've seen that we've been doing some edits on our YouTube channel, let's hire that out. That took a lot of hours off Christian. We got our time back so that we can focus it on this business. Shameless plug if you want PM. We're here to help, but we will not touch your property if it's empty. All right. Heather asked, is this going to be saved? I missed some of it. It is saved on our YouTube channel. I usually don't save this on Instagram because it's super long. However, if you want to check it out, Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategy, we're on YouTube, and we appreciate all the support.
What percentage of Moses Lake do you think you own? I used to know this because CoStar actually tracks it for us.
CoStar said I was at 2.8. I don't know if we're there right now. We bought some more deals. There was a huge deal that just traded hands from a developer. Pioneer Meadows just sold for I think it was $34.5 million. So by volume, we just got lumped.
That one's a big boy with like 3 eyes.
181 units built in 2019, I believe. So on a sheer purchase volume, we're not that big yet. And they're building a lot more right now. Just next to one of our duplexes and our triplexes, they're building 128 new units. There's a patch just off of Broadway that's going up. We have some other developer buddies who are building another like 150 units near Broadway.
And CoStar doesn't really mess with single family, small multifamily stuff. So they're looking at the 5 units and up.
However, as far as the 1-bedroom apartments go, we have a good portion of the site.
Yeah, we have a lot. We have been able to massively influence rent single-handedly.
To where I don't know if it's still this way, but the 1 and 2 bedrooms for a time had rented for more than the 3 bedrooms. Their data.
That is still the case. Recent.
That was it's bonkers.
We haven't bought any 3-bed. We
Not
actually
yet.
bought the 2 above the price of a 3.
We will someday. Dion says. Not today. Okay. Perform a cost seg on your mid to large multifamily 10 plus units. We've actually done it on some smaller units. We made some money, mainly me last year. I had a pickle with an old mentor who ended up doing bad things financially to people that were not himself. That's as far as I can go into it. But I ended up having to knock out some of his obligations because it was money getting taken from people that I knew. So I sold out of a huge portion of my real estate, multi-million-dollar position, to friends like Christian and friends like Adam. And so I had a huge taxable event, and that's going to reflect on taxes this year. So a bunch of cost saves.
I did a 6-figure flip to buy into some of that portfolio. Like
Yeah.
I got taxed for, or we'll get taxed for if we didn't do the cost seg.
We did a ton of write-offs, we being me in this case. So yes, we cost seg a lot.
You hire inspectors to do a walkthrough when you're out of state. We actually haven't bought out of state. We buy out of area all the time. I have a thing with this. If we're buying a fixer-upper property where it's just beat up, I typically skip the inspection in Grant County because 1, we know the cost of everything because we've done just about everything you can do to a building. We've been through a lot in a short period of time. But 2, if I already know that my team is coming in and demoing and redoing half the stuff, like if I know we're redoing plumbing, why would I care if the plumbing's bad? So we don't do inspections like the 38-plex. Everything's bad. We knew everything was bad. That was part of the deal. So no inspection on a huge building because we knew it was wrong, which was everything. Some of our newer assets, I like to do inspections on. Now we didn't on the duplexes. Maybe that would have been a good one to do that. But we have a couple buildings that we're looking at buying. We'll definitely run inspections on.
We're looking at a 14 unit, a 5 unit, and those are both seller finance. We will get our inspector there, Ben Brenner. Appreciate it.
We're doing a lot of plug. Ben Brenner, Olympic Home Shield. Excellent Washington State inspector. Use him for everything.
Do you guys suggest a duplex for a first deal or a house flip? I would buy multifamily over buying a flip. Now, if you have a flip that falls in your pocket, great. If you have the deal, you can line up the debt and you can figure out the money down. Do it. If you have the margins and the confident in it, great. However, my business was built off of multifamily. I did a flip that made 160 grand. I did that with my buddy Paul, which made about $80,000. That was super fun. However, I'm not just looking to flip. I'm looking for multifamily. That deal fell in my lap and I got to fix it up. And I actually sold it to a really good friend. I got to deck it out exactly how she wanted it. So it was a win-win for her. Bought it with a loan, so she got zero money down. She rents out the room, so lives there for free. I made money. Paul made money. And we threw that money into more apartment deals. You pick your business model and then you stick to your business model. And if a gold nugget falls out of the sky, don't walk over it, but don't build your business off of gold nuggets falling out of the sky. That's not realistic.
Vaughn has a great question here. What do you say when the owner asks, why me? Why are you calling me out of everyone? Well, if they're asking that question, I'll give you the answer to that. But first, if you're setting this up correctly, you're not going to get asked that question. I like to set up really quickly, like within the first 5 seconds. This is who I am, why I'm calling. The reason I'm calling is because they are a multifamily owner in my area. The real reason is they've done something that I haven't done. They have a property that I don't own. They've done something, and I want to get to know their story. So in the conversation, I'll work that in. Now, if it's right in the beginning of the conversation, it's the first thing, oh, well, why me of all people? Say you're calling someone who has a 5-plex and that's their only building. And I call them and I'm like, oh, well, I own 100 units. They have 5. Like, why are you calling me? The answer for me is, look, I'm your property neighbor. Or I'm an inspiring investor if you don't own any real estate. Whatever the reason is whatever.
Be honest.
Yeah, whatever the truth is for you. I'm calling you because I want to get to know the owners in this market because I am dedicated to being a player in this market.
And know that whatever gets you to where you're at will not get you to the next level. I can't call people today and say, hey, how the heck do you buy a 5-plex? I don't know how to do that. Don't know how I would.
Lying.
That would be lying. In the beginning, it was accurate. Never bought a 5-plex till I did. Never bought a 12-plex till I did. Never bought a 20 unit, 38 unit till I did. Beginning, it works. Now, hey, I'm property neighbors. Just want to meet up, grab coffee, meet the people that are in the neighborhood.
For those who have taken any of our courses or joined our mentorship or are actively in our mentorship, that's why we push so hard on the circle. Knowing your story is everything, because your story is going to evolve over time. And if you've mapped that out so you know how to tell the story, how is this relatable to people? Can I convey a goal? And is that goal significant? If you can walk through that in your talk tracks, you can use 2 to 3 sentences to tell an entire story, get people involved, you get them leaning in, and then you go, hey, I want to meet for coffee. And it should totally make sense why you would meet. Today, if you own a 12-plex that I don't own, and I have 12 plexes and I have all the other stuff, I'm not calling saying, hey, how did you do this? I'm calling now saying, hey, I bought some properties, I've invested in your market. I want to get to know the other players. I'm working on fixing up Moses Lake. I want to know who else is playing and how we can collaborate.
And if you're buying in a new market, hey, Christian can do this stuff. Never bought in Quincy. I have. Hey, I've never bought in Quincy. I own in Moses Lake. I want to meet the people over here. Never bought here. Here's how you did it.
The first time I ever tried that call in Quincy, I booked a meeting with the largest owner in Quincy.
Yeah. Big baller. Comes over half the town.
Yep. And he's helped us on projects. Is he going to sell us stuff? He could, but maybe not.
Probably won't.
I don't think so. He's passing a good chunk. All his good stuff is going to his kids, and all his bad stuff he's trying to sell to his tenants. It's kind of sad. I'm watching a massive portfolio kind of dissolve.
But it is what it is. It's what he wants to do with his legacy.
And he's managed some of the properties that we own today, and he's been an extremely helpful asset.
Yeah, I asked him, hey, I have a flood. I need to turn off the water. Where is the water shut off? He's like, okay, go in the back corner of the basement, and you have to reach the very top behind some insulation. And it was there. It was the smallest thing. I never would have found it. So
you never know what you're going to get out of the meeting. So the goal is not, hey, I'm going to get in here and buy real estate.
That's not the point.
I know we're sidetracking now, but your story reminds me of this. This is really important. You're meeting an owner to talk as another owner. Even if you don't own any property, just put yourself in the mindset. I am going to be an owner in this market. I'm going to meet owner to owner, and we're just going to talk real estate. That's all it is. Don't complicate it past that.
Now, Josh from Instagram asked that if we are just looking at buying in Texas, as far as out-of-state stuff goes, I looked actually at Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're not actively pursuing anything because we're in the stabilization and then shooting for the optimization of the middle of that right now. If a great deal pops up, we've got some of our mentees that are crushing it, millions of real estate, their money down. They're looking at bigger deals. If they just find a screamer of a deal, then we'll take a look at helping them out and potentially just buying it with them to help them advance, and it helps us advance. However, we're not actively looking, so we're open to the pitch. However, we're not just pursuing one state.
I'm very focused on what we talked about earlier in the call, the optimization, stabilization period. We have enough projects on this end where we don't need to go out and do more, but I love adventure, so that's something.
Adventure.
We can look. Scotty Curtis, what advice do you guys have to learn everything that you learned? I know.
Oh, we did that one.
Oh, we did that one. That's right. Somehow that got ta-da. I'm going to roll to. Sorry, it's jumping around. Hey guys, what's your thought on buying a rental property in a state that has rent control and rent stabilization?
Rent control is a great thing. It guarantees you that everybody's going to raise their rent by that amount. 8% rent control. You know that everyone's going to bump their rents 8%. Now, where that can be a pain if you have people way below market, because you'll never get it to market. Then you got to pay people tons of money to get out. If that's the case, I wouldn't buy that deal. However, if you're buying a deal that's already at market rent control is not a bad thing.
Actually, does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. It makes housing guaranteed to be unaffordable for everyone.
Whatever the masses typically think they're voting for, as far as financial things that go on in the economy, whatever they vote for, usually the opposite happens. And it's never intended to happen, but it just seems to happen, especially when it comes around to real estate. So if you're in an area that wants to try and cap real estate prices, it typically ends up doing the opposite.
But that's okay. Second question, is the resort and Airbnb part of your tax strategy? The short-term rental loophole seems to be a really powerful strategy to lower your tax liability from your personal home. Nope.
The resort, when you get a whole bunch of stable stuff, when you get a whole bunch of stable cash flow, it's really important to then go out and get a whole bunch of income so it's quicker to pay off all your debt. For us, we built a stable business, a multifamily. Then we went and bought a resort, and the resort bangs out a ton of cash flow. In the summer, it's going to outperform our multifamily. So we take all, we take all the cash flow from it, and we hammer the debt faster. So we got stable assets that shoot out money, 5 figures a month, and then we went and got one more asset that'll match that 5 figures a month, so that we can pay off all the debt. Talk about optimization way faster, and then we have a debt-free portfolio. It was not for tax purposes; it was for income purposes, creating more tax obligations. Hi.
Austin Eilers. Hey, Austin. Good to see you here.
I know another Eilers. You know, Dan. Say hi to him for me.
If you guys are related,
that'd be crazy.
Yeah, we've bought some real estate. I doubt they are. Cody, what is the biggest lesson you learned while self-managing your 12-plex? I'm assuming this is the first one, but your first 2 deals were both 12-plex. What did you learn?
So my very first 12-plex was very turnkey. I learned that if you buy something and you think it's going to cash flow a ton, and you think you're going to get rich quick, you're not. I bought my 12-plex, and this was years before I met Christian. So I started managing it. I didn't touch rent. And something I learned from my old mentor at the time is like, don't do anything to it. Just run it as it is. So for a year, I did not do anything. I didn't do any upgrades. I made sure I maintained things. I had to replace some water heaters, and that cost multiple thousands of dollars. That was covered by the cash flow. Luckily, it happened 6 months in. However, outside of that, I didn't really do any projects. I didn't touch rent for 2 years. In the beginning, if you can't afford for people to leave, don't change anything. They'll just keep paying the rent typically to pay your bills, and you'll float. And so that's what I did. And as a manager, I made sure tenants were happy, but I did not change anything until I could afford to have people. And then I raised rent a little bit, and one person left.
However, here we go, what, 3 years later?
3 years later. And that asset, I just did a $20,000 remodel on one of the buildings. I had to replace the electrical panels and the heat system. I spent another $40,000 on the other 2 plexes. It was 3 4-plexes for 12 units. So I had 40 grand to do that. Now the asset cash flows about $3,500 a month instead of $800 a month. I paid off debt, and I've increased the rent a little bit and decreased the expense a little bit by doing upgrades.
So it's not get rich quick, which a lot of people think it is, but it's get rich quick a heck of a lot faster than pretty much any other vehicle.
Yeah, and now $3,500 a month is great when it's full. However, I just spent $60,000 on it to do upgrades. Like that costs money. Granted, 42 grand a year, 3,500 a month cash flow is phenomenal, especially when I had next to no money in it. Now today, I paid off the hard money, so I've got 125 grand into it, plus some more. So 42 grand is a great return on that. However, I just wrote another check for 60. That's a year and a half of cash flow. And so while it is nice to build your cash flow, it does cost money to run these things. And as far as a management perspective, if you cannot rock the boat in the beginning, that's what I did. I just didn't rock the boat for a few years. Just float on until you can build another portfolio and start building it up with more properties. Now I have enough cash flow that I can throw at problems like that, and I can rock the boat a little bit. But as a manager getting started with no money, I didn't want to change anything, and that's exactly how I ran it. I just didn't change anything from prior ownership.
Balon,
No way to run it.
yeah, that's facts. During the feasibility period, did you guys contact tenants directly for the estoppel certificate, or does the owner?
The broker that was repping the owner got the deposit, the estoppel certificates sent over to the tenants. Tenants filled it out, and typically you can do that during inspection. You just hand it to them. They hand it.
I don't see a lot of property managers do that for you. That's not uncommon at all.
Doesn't really matter who does it.
Anything. Heck yeah.
I don't. 10x Rule is a really good read from Cardone.
Yes.
I agree with that. That's my favorite book on mindset. Do I like everything Cardone? No. Do I like most of it? Absolutely. 10x Rule, though, is the single best book I have ever read on mindset. That has really shaped a lot of what we've done in the last few years.
Jeff, I have an individual that wants to partner with me in an apartment complex. He just wants to collect the monthly or quarterly check and for me to do all the work. Okay, great. Got the deal. and you've got the debt lined up, you got your big loan lined up, you have an equity partner. Phenomenal. Now, if you want to work with them, if you know them, you trust them, make sure you get your legal so you don't have to trust them. One thing to trust the people you work with, another thing to not have to trust them. So if you've got a deal, you got the debt lined up, and they're ready to write a check, get your legal squared away with your attorney and rock and roll.
That's actually how we structure a majority of our private capital. Like, if we are giving equity, which on some deals you have to. Actually, we tend to do equity more than we should. We actually probably should use more debt, more debt, even if we wanted to just defer a payment into the future. However we want to structure that, we should probably do more of that. But when you are bringing on an equity partner, you do not want a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You don't want a bunch of people piling the ship.
We don't anyway.
We made that. We had some conflict with that on our first deal together on 38. We had one person who really wanted to be an active member of the team. I want passive investors because I want to be able to steer. When you have 3 people or 4 people, try not to partner with more than that, but in our case, 5 people who 2 of them are fine. 3 people have a direction they want to go, but 1 person wants to go in a totally different direction. Now you just have a mess. Don't do that. I like the idea of, yeah, capital partner wants to be passive. Awesome. If they bring the money, that's a huge contribution. Do the work. You don't want them in your way. I think personally, if you want to be the operator, be the operator.
Yep. Rev, Happy New Year's, guys. I was told we can't say Happy New Year's after the 7th.
Yeah, I never heard that. I just heard that. Tenants. My wife told me you can't say Happy New Year after the 7th. So Cody Reb, shame on you. Apparently, we're not allowed to do that. Just kidding. I'm really excited about this year. Did we go live last week? Yes, we did. This is our 2nd live of the year.
Another year with your fourplex.
Yeah.
Another year of appreciation, another year of cash flow. Congrats, Cody.
Fourplex and decked out the bottom. If anyone hasn't followed Cody Reb on Instagram, I think I saw a couple of videos of his reno there.
It's awesome.
He did a really good job.
We helped them find an off-market fourplex. Do you guys ever plan on developing property ground up? Absolutely. The problem is we're broke. We need more money. We have some money. We need a lot more money. If you want to develop, it costs a lot. And we don't have enough to build what we want to build because we don't want to build a duplex. We're building like 80 to 100 plus units. And we're not that big yet.
What I would like to do in building is when we do that whole debt hammer thing we talked about, and you just have a bunch of money, your option to buy more things in cash if you don't want to re-lever up, or use the cash flow to go build something big and epic. That's what I would like to do. But what I see a lot of people do is they jump to building too early. Building has a lot more variables. Variables mean risks. That means you get more upside and more downside. What you don't want to do is get wiped out in the middle of a building project, lose everything. And I've seen it happen way too many times.
Ludic asked, how do you handle unexpected market downturns and adjust your strategy? All right. So number 1, we do not adjust our strategy. Our strategy, we meet with players that play the game that we want to play it. They played it exactly how we want to do it. They built the portfolio we want to build. We learn from them. We learn how they played it, how they adjusted their debt stacks when economic cycles happen. We built our strategy of buying and holding and never selling. Selling is not an option. We would sell 2 triplexes and that is it. Or we won't sell anything else. We do not adjust our strategy. And the reason is everything cash flows on long-term fixed rate debt. And we have balloons. Like we've got a 3-year balloon. We can knock it out before it's due. We do not borrow money that we can't afford to pay back. That is part of our strategy. We've got a 3-year balloon for $500,000. We could pay off the $500,000 before that balloon comes up. We've got $1,995,000 due in 5 years. We could pay that off before the balloon pops. We don't borrow money that we can't afford to just write a check. It is really important to do this. Some people borrow too much money and they don't have a cash flow position to knock it out before it's due. We can't pay off all our debt before it's due. However, we can pay off any of our balloons before it's due. So we finance a few, knock out a few. And that is how we structure our business. We don't have to lose it or have to adjust. People that have to adjust their model all the time never truly master the game they're playing. We don't want to keep switching games. We picked a model where we can set the rules and never violate.
Most of our debt is 5 to 15 years. So we'll be in a different market cycle by the time those balloons come up anyway. So when you you eliminate the variables, you have fixed constants. We bought a good deal, cash flowed, continues the cash flow. We get paid to wait for a different market. We'll keep buying. So we buy, we hold, we buy, we hold, we buy, we hold. Whatever the market does in there, just do good deals that cash flow day one and put them in long enough debt where Doesn't matter. You're in a different market cycle when you're there. It's that simple.
And if we were ever in jeopardy of losing the asset, let's say that the bloom was coming up and we were in a really tough time for refinances or X, Y, and Z, like for example, 38 Plex worth $3.6 billion. We have $1.9 million. We could sell out, like I think it's 60% of that deal for $1.9 million, somewhere in there, sell it out, get the cash we got from it and pay out the debt. We're now in a JV, but we have a debt-free portfolio on that asset. So we can sell out a portion of the LLC. It's our taxable event, of course. However, we're not going to lose our real estate. I'd rather pay taxes than lose the real estate. We need to sell a portion of the LLC. We can sell it before the asset, and then we use all the cash from selling a portion of the LLC in that deal to pay off the debt. Lots of ways to finagle debt and equity, but it's really important to not play the game twice, not lose the us. We don't want to lose this real estate.
I have multiple exit strategies, but if you have to adjust, you adjust, and just the magic is don't sell the whole thing. Retain control of your property.
You can always buy back later.
Yep.
If you negotiate.
What are your thoughts on developers who then offer seller financing? That's fine. Any deal, as long as you figure out the deal first, which is, okay, so they built something new, then the debt, which is seller financing, and then whatever the down payment needs to be is either going to be additional debt or equity. If you can figure out those things and cash flows, awesome. Typically, developers are trying to make some money. What I have found more often than not is developers, most of them like to have a big cash out event so they can go build the next thing. Yep. However, investors, like we were just talking about, who get a little bit more mature in their portfolio, who build stuff, some of them love contracts because they just like building, and then they put them on contracts because now it's just cash flow without having to manage them. Some people just like being the builder.
Yeah, if you build it for $1 million, if the price is 2.2, maybe they ask for $1 million down, they have no money in it, and they just carry a note for $1.2 million, and then they go build the same thing again, and then repeating it. I know a lot of people that are doing that right now in Grant County.
They need to make enough money to make sense of selling it. The payments need to be high enough. It is rare, not impossible at all, but it's rare to see the new builds cash flow on a seller finance note because they're sparkly, new, everyone wants them, people can justify buying cash.
However, the way to make it cash flow is you either borrow cheaper money or borrow less money or increase the optimization of that asset, increase the income or decrease expenses. So in that scenario, they can seller finance it to you at 1 or 2%. Probably would work. I need to not die.
That is
No true.
preferred.
What is this like with die portfolio?
No, I'll figure it out.
I take care of it.
How much do you guys pay yourselves out of the monthly cash flow? What percentage of it do you keep it at?
Since end of November, we haven't paid ourselves a dime. So the money in our bank accounts is going down. All that to be said, we like to pay ourselves $10,000 a month. We were doing that for a while, and then we decided let's just spend all our money and fix everything up really quick. And so instead of paying ourselves each $10,000, we're taking $20,000 that we would have been paying ourselves total and just throwing it at the portfolio to really ramp it up faster.
I was texted by Dion, who said I'm going to get bombarded with this question. Dion wants to know why you weren't in Vegas. Rob, thank you for asking. Dion, Matt Lumberjack Landlord, Millennial Mike, some of our favorite YouTube friends went to Vegas and we were invited. I don't take vacation except for Christmas to New Year's. I usually go to Mexico. I just got back and we have employees to hire, employees who are leaving the company. We have a lot of maintenance projects to coordinate, and we needed to work on the portfolio. Optimization and stabilization is more important to me than media. Yes, Vegas is fun. Social media is fun. I love sharing our journey. However, the journey is not worth anything if we lose all of our stuff because we're not managing our stuff. We needed to focus on our current projects.
Yeah,
and put that first.
If we're going to be real estate people, we can't just go on stage and talk about it all the time. We do have to make sure we optimize our real estate. Otherwise, we're gurus.
Had a fantastic time and gotten some great posts for everyone. However, I will not sacrifice
great real estate for great posts.
Yep.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Could not like for these dudes from All Nighter. Well, I'm not ashamed. I'll ask for that. Yeah. If you're in here still,
hit the like. And if you're on Instagram, we appreciate you. And if you want to hit the like on YouTube, that helps us.
Yeah. I would see here.
Someone asked, when you sell your course, is it possible that you could do that for free?
Nope.
Nope.
It's expensive to run. and operate.
It actually does cost us money every month.
A lot.
We use Lightspeed T, and our average bill for that every month is over 5 figures a month. And the reason is that is Brad Lee's platform, and Brad Lee doesn't offer services for free. So it does cost us a significant amount of money to run that. All that to be said, if you want free, that's why we're doing this. You can ask us any question you want, and as long as it's appropriate, we'll answer it live.
We do 3 videos a week, not including the live. We do a Monday, which for this whole year is going to have a co-host. Right now, it's Cayetano. Tuesdays, we do Multifamily 101 because I recognize some of our topics are kind of complicated, and I really want to have a platform where people can get into the game. Fridays, we do whatever the heck we want to talk about. They're my favorite videos, but we will go whatever we think is going to be the funnest, most engaging topic. We'll do on Fridays. Wednesdays, we go live. You want the mentorship for free? Join via text here. If you want to do a more involved thing, that's a lot of hours of work. We have multiple staff members. There's a marketing budget. Otherwise, no one actually shows up. And then you have to pay Brad Lee, and we have to have media equipment. It is an extremely people don't realize that it's a really expensive operation, tens of thousands of dollars a month. So unfortunately can't do that for free.
However,
yeah,
appreciate you being here.
Yep, we have prepaid. What you need, we will do our best to offer.
All righty, from Noah Square. What was your first creative finance deal? That was my first 12-plex. Bought it was on the market in Quincy, Washington. Sat on the market for a year and a half. I bought it with 0 money out of pocket. Traditional first lien, second lien. So I bought it with 0 money out of pocket and it cash flow $800 a month.
Oh, in regards to our January 7th rule, he said he'll make sure he'll carry the no happy New Year's after the 7th. Never heard that before, but apparently it's a rule now because my wife said it is. Oh, and thank you. A nice plug for us. These guys with the real deal helped me change my mindset, get me into my first property. I really appreciate that, Cody. That deal was really fun, and it means a lot to me that that deal went as well as it did.
And there's always exceptions for every rule. Cody Rad was pre-approved for $500,000 duplex. That was his cap. And our lender said, you can do a 4-plex. However, where the prices are at, you're probably not going to get qualified. For those who don't know, you can use 75% of rental income to qualify for an owner-occupied 4-plex if you have a property manager, professional property manager manage it for you, or you have history of managing real estate for 2 years. We worked with Trevor Bennett, who's with NFM Lending, which is phenomenal. And Cody Redd was only approved for $500,000. We got approved for $600,000 because we found an off-market 4-plex that was a little bit underpriced. There's always an exception for all these rules, and even if you get pre-approved for $500,000, there's usually a way to push that up. And now his 4-plex is worth like $900,000.
Yep. If you want to attend our live event on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, Trevor Bennett will be there. So if you guys want to see him as well as some other members of our team, great events, book a cabin, sit in a hot tub, and learn from
And if you
the
can't
masters.
book a cabin and you just want to show up for the Saturday, it's like $150, buy you some food, come hang out.
How would you go to private money? If I understand the question correctly, it's how would we present for private money? I'll start and you can pick up the back end. The first thing and most important thing to me is I do not want to hear about the numbers first. If you're asking me for capital, I'm going to zone out. Not everyone's a numbers person, and everyone relates to stories. That is how human beings work. So tell me what you like about the property. If you want to know how to go to private capital, I found this deal is in one of my favorite neighborhoods of Moses Lake. The building is beautiful. I need a little bit of reno in the units, but the great news is I have the best team for renovations. I actually have a template for this that I love. So a little bit of a project, but I absolutely love this property. Can I share this deal with you? That is how you open the deal. It is not, hey, you're going to make 15% IRR and this deal has a whole bunch of upside and I look boring. There's lots of great numbers out there.
A lot of numbers on the internet. I don't care about the numbers.
Tell me about the deal and why I want to be invested.
Tell me what we're doing. We have a mentee who was looking at buying a turret tower. That was cool.
Yeah.
I want to buy a turret tower. Like, I'm more inclined to buy that even if the numbers suck. Cash flows are great. It's 4% to own a turret versus 12% to own a people box. I'd opt for the turret.
I want to be part of the story, as does everyone else. So that's the most important piece. The second most important piece is you do actually have to know your numbers. I know them. It takes me some time to write them out. I can't do them in my head, but I can do them on paper and I can do them really, really well. Cody can do them really well and instantly in his head. We look at deals. That's a great skill because speed really matters on these, but know your numbers going in is the next most important thing.
And don't operate out of a textbook. I see this all the time in our YouTube comments. People say, you can't have a negative cap rate. They're using a valuation calculator and they're saying, well, talk about V, which is the variable in this situation. That can't be negative. You can't have a negative valuation when you're solving for a piece of real estate. Well, in a textbook, of course not. And people aren't going to pay you to buy real estate. It's not a negative value. However, in practical application, if you understand how numbers really work, basic algebra, you don't start with a valuation. You start with the actual production of an asset. And an asset can lose money. And if you know that, you can get deals funded even if it is a negative cap rate. If the net income is negative, you bought the 38plex. If you just operated it as it was operating, as the previous owner had it, you paid cash, you would still lose money every single month. That's a negative cap rate, a negative net income, because you could pay cash and you'd still lose money, no debt. If you know your numbers, you know how they work, you can make a terrible deal in a presentation, you can tell a story and get it funded. That's how we did with a negative deal that lost money, even if we paid cash. We signed up for a $7,000 a month mortgage, which took it even further negative. And within 9 months, we made $1.5 million.
There is a short in there somewhere. If you watch this, that is how you get a negative cap rate.
But you can't get those deals funded if you don't understand the fundamentals of reality. Reality in a textbook, yes, you cannot have a negative valuation. However, you can have in theory, you could. In practical application, you can. Well, that's actually backwards. In theory, you can't. In practical application, you can. You can totally lose money on assets if you own them outright. Most people don't know how to project that, though. The story is what gets those deals funded, not the numbers. Because if I pitch people on numbers, hey guys, we could pay cash for this and we're going to lose money. And by the way, our mortgage payment is going to be $7,000 a month. So we're going to lose even more money. No one's going to fund it on that. They will fund it on the vision. They'll fund it on the story. And that's how we made our first $1.5 million together.
There was a lot of years to get my first $500,000 net worth. This is amazing, that one deal.
And that put us on bigger pockets, and that got us launched into Grant County. And that deal was, which is the most notorious property in all of Moses. Like, if you live there, you know what we're talking about. I don't even have to tell you where it is. It's just a well-known property for being terrible. It was on the market since I was 8 years old, 13 years. Ridiculous. Lost money every single month. We still got it funded because we had a story and we proved it. So
another reason why mentorship is free. It was super, super expensive and really, really hard to get here. We're going to spend all of our time teaching a lot of people. There was actually a lot of work that went into this.
We spent $200,000 a month, so you don't have to. $6,000 a day goes out. I'm excited for it to be $60,000 a day. One day. We're not Alex Ramosi yet.
Also, we took our course and priced it that you can get started for the same amount of money Cody started with. That's, if anyone wonders why the full lifetime and the mentorship for 3 months free is wrapped into a $3,000 price while our competition is $17,000. We want you to be able to get started with the money that Cody got started. That was the whole story behind that.
I didn't have a credit card that was for $17,000. I couldn't have bought most people's mentorships.
The difference is you didn't have a course, a mentorship, or a textbook.
Ta-da.
We'll give you all those things. Mine's the textbook. I have a 10-pager. From Levon, when you meet with owners, how do you tell your story of how we are going to buy our buildings? What do you tell the owners on how you're going to buy your building? I guess you kind of ask the same question twice.
Well, I don't tell them that I'm going to buy their building. I ask them how they got there. I want to know how they got to where they're at.
Yep.
I want to know their story. I met with someone. They started with a sixplex. They bought a seller finance, $90,000 change, $9,000 down. Plot land next door to it was for sale for $2,000. They couldn't afford it because they spent their last $9,000 to buy a sixplex. They got chased off the property with a shotgun because they had a racist tenant and they didn't believe that he was the owner. He's trying to collect rent. I learned their stories and I replicated their strategies to build a portfolio that I built. I'm not calling to buy their property. I want to learn how they did it. So I can learn how they did it. I can repeat that on every property. That's the multifamily strategy. The players learn how they did everything they did and then just repeat it on other buildings. And if they sell it to us, wonderful. If they don't, doesn't matter.
That pretty much sums that up. The one thing with talking to owners and presenting your story, it's never about buying. And the main thing is you don't go into an owner meeting with any sort of plan of how you're buying anything. We say this at least once a call, and it's totally fine because the world needs to hear this. I'll say this in every live. It's deal, then debt, then equity. There's no deal when you're going to meet with someone. I'm not calling to buy a property. We're calling to learn from an owner. So I don't know anything about how I'm buying a deal. If you pointed to any building that I've bought, when I first looked at that building, I had no idea how I was going to buy it. That we're not there yet because I don't know any of the variables. I don't know what the offer is. I don't know what the owner's objectives are. We're not there yet, so don't worry about it. Miles McCormick. When buying out of state, do you think it's better to get an offer accepted then fly out? Yes.
That's what I do. I looked at buying a deal in Tulsa. I got it under contract before I flew out. No reason to burn time or money, especially if you're just getting started, or you actually have something that you can close on.
A lot of people equate it to like buying a house. You're going to walk the house first. For most of the multifamily, even if it's in my neighborhood, like I'm not usually walking through the property. Occasionally we will. Yeah. But I'm not usually walking through a property or touring a property before we're under contract. All that stuff is done in due diligence in commercial real estate. There's been exceptions to that. I have owners who just want to show me their properties. And so we'll walk through them, we'll do a whole thing, but that's not standard practice. If it's out of state, don't burn money on a not deal.
Vlad said, I just saw a title talking about me, happy face. We may or may not have been referring to you.
I was inspired
by your 14 years. There was a little bit of a lack of due diligence on that, but that's okay. You're getting through it. Do fine.
Yeah. And we've had other, and we actually, the real inspiration for it is we had a call from a friend with 10 units who I would say the situation is far more dire.
Oh, yeah.
No due diligence at all. It was a deal that we passed on, and he could have even just called us and asked us to look at the deal with him. He didn't.
He didn't look at bank statements. He didn't look at, and that was over in Central Washington. It was just like painful.
Hard lesson to learn. Sad to see it happen to a friend. It's not a deal that he's not a mentee, not a deal that we looked at first. Since, well, we looked at it, but we didn't look at it with him. I could have told him
he's going to have pain.
Yeah. If you are very liquid, you can take on huge projects. If you're not, you need to do your due diligence right. That is why today's topic, there's that. And then there's buildings where it's like, we've had, I'm not going to name drop a property, but I mean, we've had 2 properties that have had septic issues that were avoidable in due diligence. We've either trusted an owner or we just didn't. We're like, oh, well, we'll get them pumped soon. One of our first buildings, the septic failed. I mean, like backed up when poo was coming through drains within 7 days of close. We didn't have enough time to schedule a septic company. That is an avoidable mistake. You can just flip the lid and look for poo.
We did. They wanted to buy it.
Yeah, don't get emotional. Don't make the decision. Oh, it's going to happen. I don't want to stir the pot. Just do the due diligence, or in this case, stir the poo. But it's as simple. Like, honestly, we could have just lifted a lid.
Yeah, we didn't.
Or paid for an inspection, but it could have been free.
We didn't care.
Yeah. So the message there is care. Just do the due diligence, and you won't have these problems. It's happened to us. It's happened to our friends.
In the chat here, how do I go into real estate? Do I learn to be a realtor to wholesale? Well, if you want to get into real estate, there are a lot of ways to do it. You can do it in property management. You can be a real estate agent. You can be a real estate investor. You can be a wholesaler. You got to choose which one you want to do, and then go meet with people who have already done that, and then repeat their actions. Be a wholesaler. Okay, I'm not going to recommend that. You can do what you want. If you want to be a realtor, great. If you want to be a real estate agent, that's definitely a path that you pursue. However, again, you don't have to do that if you want to be an investor. Don't add steps, just be an investor. Figure out how to buy the real estate, which is deal, debt, equity.
Jeff. I got a message from Jeff on Instagram that they might have left the call, so we'll answer it. And then
Mr. Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, if you go back and watch this, we can connect on Instagram at Christian Osgood. Anyone ask a question there anytime. We'll try to get to the Instagram questions from both Cody and me on the beginning part while we're letting everyone filter into the YouTube live. Feel free to ask your questions there if you think of it during the week. Use it as a note card. So I'm using a syndication deal analyzer spreadsheet model right now. Nothing changes if I'm doing a JV with one person with capital, correct? I can still use the spreadsheet.
When you're reading.
Yeah, I'll say it a little louder. I'm using a syndication deal analyzer spreadsheet model right now. Nothing changes if I'm doing a JV with one person with a capital, correct? I assume as
Okay,
a capital.
so you're looking at it as if you syndicate and you put a whole bunch of people putting money into the pot versus just money in the pot. Returns won't change. However, how you distribute those can change based on the ownership you give up. If you're getting $1 million from 10 people to 1 people, the difference is there's a 10% return. The 10% return goes to 1 person versus the 10% return gets divvied up amongst 10 people. They'd still all earn 10% on the money. However, it's just they're getting smaller amounts because they put in smaller amounts. Returns will stay the same based on the amount of people that you bring into a deal, whether it's 1 or 10. How you divvy it up can change what they actually receive.
How did you think of getting into real estate with this strategy? This is amazing. I agree because I started the conventional way. I'll tee you up because we hopped onto your strategy. This really started with Cody's story. I bought 2 deals conventionally and I ran out of money. So I got as far as I could go and I'm like, I'm stuck.
Joining the Broke Boy Club.
I met Cody, who was you were either just about to close or had just closed your 3rd deal. I believe you were under contract.
Yeah, I bought my 6plex.
Yeah. That is where we started linking up. We found this strategy through trial and error and from doing exactly what we tell everyone else to do. We set a goal and we met the people who have done what we're trying to do, and that is it. We are copying almost exactly at a way faster pace because they've done it for us, which is great. But some of our mentors, we are copying exactly what they did, how they did it. Yep. We just went bigger earlier.
Bigger, faster. And they sat down with us and they told us the pitfalls. They said, one day you're going to wake up and the debt, and they used an analogy. They said, the water's going to be right below your nose. You're going to just have to float for a little bit and you're going to have to get it back up. And we realized that was real like 4 months ago. And then we sat down with them yesterday and we told them, you were right. It happened. And then we survived. It's like, yeah, a lot of people don't. People just quit. But we did what he said to do. And we got through it because he told us exactly how it was going to play out. We already knew what was going to happen. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we knew it was going to happen. And we survived. We took his advice. We got through it the way he did it. This is why we tell people, go meet with the players.
You didn't call it a debt hammer. That's our term.
We coined it.
But we looked at what he did. When we were talking, like, when you start, you have to leverage. Like, leverage, leverage, leverage. What he didn't do is he didn't re-leverage. Now, a little bit different. He bought a lot of smaller properties on 30-year fixed rate debt.
Yep.
So he just didn't re-leverage them, and he let them pay off on a full 30-year AM. He's turning 70 this year. So he doesn't have any debt left because the properties all paid for themselves. Now he plays with cash. However, we bought some bigger buildings and we have balloons. So we had to tool this in a way where it's, how do we get to debt free like he is when you start with leverage? Because he's like, when you start, if you want to get anywhere, leverage is your friend, just not forever.
And a year ago, levering up, Cody. And I had a better relationship with him a year ago than Christian did. Now we're pretty.
Yeah, I'd say probably pick you over me if you.
But I still need more deal. All that to be said, he's given us advice. And a year ago, he said, keep levering up, Cody. You're not there yet. Yesterday, he's like, all right, you guys have done it. Time to pay it off. I asked him what his thoughts were. He said, oh, you guys pay it off. You'd be great. Just pay it off. So that's what we're doing. We get advice from the pros. We get it all paid off, and we got a couple $100,000 a month in income, and we have multiple 5 figures a month in expenses, just OpEx, operating expenses, and we keep the difference.
And because we did this strategy, to answer your question, Lavon, that's how we thought of it. Because we did this, Cody, when he is 30 years old, which is still 7 years away, but when Cody is 30, he's going to be where this guy is when he's 70, because we took the information, we applied it, we modified it, we combined it with information we got from other people, and we came up with a strategy to replicate what he did. We can do it faster because we have a roadmap.
Realistically, by the time I'm 30, we should each have a $40 to $50 million equity position with a low debt position. And all the debt we have will be non-recourse.
No, that's not bragging. That's just, you guys can do this too. Follow the journey.
Those are the numbers. That's why we're so excited about the YouTube thing. A lot of these mentors, people that we're meeting with, they're never going to go on YouTube. They don't have Instagram. They don't have Facebook with a profile.
Not have any help when we started. We figured this out because the one guy who was trying to help us was a fraud.
Well, had good intentions. He just had bad disciplines.
And ethics.
That was from a lack of discipline. I could not be here without that person. That's why it's really important to learn what you can from people. You take the good from the bad, but you have to recognize when there's too much bad, you can't keep working with. It's unfortunate. I wish if he had better disciplines, I would not be partnering with Christian. I'd partner with him, and he would be worth $10 million today instead of less than, well, whatever. It is what it is, but you learn the best things you can from the people in your space, and you use that to advance. And if you understand that what gets you to where you're at will not get you to the next level, you stay humble and you realize you have to keep meeting with more players. What's that? Okay, we got a question here.
Go for it.
If I get a bank to go in first position and a seller in second, will hard money go in third since I'll need it? Well, why will you need it? Do you need it for reno? Do you need it for the down payment? There's other ways to back money. That said, don't add too many steps. Don't get too complicated. If you get too complicated, you're at risk of losing your stuff. I'm not a fan of thirds. I've had a third mortgage before for $135,000. 2 months into it, I wrote a check because I didn't want it.
Oh, I remember that. I contributed to that one.
Yeah, we both threw in multiple 5 figures and we split it. So you can go to third position. However, I'm not a fan. Some people are going to say if you have the equity position, go for it. I think that's BS, and that if you keep it simple and you can just de-lever when you can, you're going to do better than those who just lever to them. Does managing a multifamily become harder than single family homes? How much more work goes into it? The easiest property that we've ever managed has been our Pheasant Street duplexes. I found duplexes to be the easiest things to manage. I've never managed single. I don't own single. That said, duplexes have been closest thing that we have. It's the easiest. I'm sure when we get to 100+ unit complexes, those will be significantly easier than the duplexes because we have no input on it. We'll have management teams, offices, we'll have payroll, but that we're not there yet, so we can't do that.
It would be astronomically easier to manage 10 plexes than 100 houses. If you want to have a really small portfolio and you want to reach financial freedom and your goal is like, hey, $5,000 a month cuts for me, you can probably do this with houses and it'll be fine. If you really want to scale something and have a business or have high income, depends on your goals. But if you want to scale this thing and play at the highest level, you're going to end up buying bigger buildings. Buying a ton of houses is a management disaster. It's super hard. You have in the 100 unit model.
Yeah.
You have 100 separate roofs with separate lifetimes with 100 water heaters. You have all these individual things that are all on their own failing schedule. The maintenance for that would be insane.
I want to ask, what's the difference between a realtor and an agent? So a realtor will get offended by this joke, and an agent will not. The only thing is designated. If you care about your title, go be a realtor. If you don't, go be an agent, just sell more houses than the person that has the R behind their logo. Being a realtor is overrated. Designations are stupid. And I don't care if I get hate on that. That is accurate.
There are some places where there's different designations between being an agent, being a broker. Those are ones that
That's
people get
synonymous.
confused on.
That's synonymous much as far as
In Texas, a broker is basically a designated broker, and anyone who's not that is a real estate agent working under them. However, in Washington, all agents are brokers and realtors suck.
I got likes on that joke.
Oh, good. I'm glad that landed.
Yeah. If you're playing the game to get designations, like cool, but designations don't pay the bills.
Titles, go get a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
No one cares in business what your title is. Just fact. I make up the titles for all of our job things, and people's titles sound epic, but they're completely fake. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
All titles are just made up.
You're the regional director.
Yes, I've done it.
For this region. It's the only region we're in.
Oh, it's a national director.
I'm the international rep.
Oh, congratulations, Cody. You're promoted.
I manage all the stuff we own in Europe.
Yeah. Sorry to anyone who's a realtor. Good job on getting your designation.
Yeah.
Mind Your Business says, Are you still doing the mentorship for $500 a month? Yes, we are. You can have that access. It's within the course. I like people to go through the course. There's a reason. The questions in the mentorship are better if everyone went through the base knowledge. So if you do the course, there's an option to sign up for the mentorship for $500 a month.
The way you do that is you go through the 349. If you don't want to do the lifetime and have the course forever, you do the 349, and then you get through the course. At the very end, there's one module that says upgrade to mentorship plans. And then you just press it. It's $500 a month. It'll change your billing. And then you just press join now and it'll join the meeting schedule.
Now, if you want to drop the course after that, you can, I don't care. But the best value, and this is why I really push for this, you can do it at 500 if that's your budget. However, if you can just buy the lifetime course, this course is our legacy. Like the course we will update till we die. In fact, we're filming for that right after this. The course is really, really awesome. If you buy it for lifetime, you just have everything we do for the rest of ever. And you get 3 months free of mentorship, which is a better deal.
Even if we die, you'll still have it.
Yep. And you can continue at $500 a month after your 3 months. So answer to your question is yes. The way you do it is roll through the course. If you absolutely can't afford them, send me a message at Christian Osgood and go, hey, I just want to do the mentorship for $500. I'll shoot you.
Okay. Illinois agents need to be realtor in order to have access to the MLS. Okay. I'm not in Illinois. However, it's good to know.
There we go. So that's very important over there. If you're in Illinois and you're a realtor, congratulations.
And if that's factual, then yes, that's really important. Because I don't know. I've never been there. Do you have a goal for number of units you look for in a multifamily deal? No.
More.
But it's not like it's just a hard and fast number. We just bought a duplex.
I love that dude.
Yeah, and we bought it from someone who's going to sell 15 and an extra 12 units. We have a good relationship with them. We like working with them. The unit count's not the important piece. The story. We're going on an adventure and we're taking everybody here with us. We bought a duplex because it was built in '94 and it's a really baller asset, really baller location in Moose Lake. And that's why we wanted to buy it. But yeah, it was a really good deal overall. Now, is it a cash cow? Absolutely not. It actually loses $200 a month. However, I like the property and we put it in an LLC that cash flows multiple thousands a month. So it's yeah, we're gonna raise it to break even just because we want to own it, but we don't need to absolutely max that one out. Are you guys doing any out-of-state investments? We're looking at 1,100 unit portfolio seller finance, and we're looking at a couple 100-unit complexes. That said, we haven't bought anything out of state. Can't really speak to it because we haven't done it. But when we know more, you'll know more because everything is public.
Levon clarified his earlier question. He meant in the future, what are we going to tell the owners on how we're going to build our wealth? What do you tell the owners on where
I don't
we're
really
buying the
understand.
property?
I don't understand the question.
I don't either.
As far as telling the owner how we want to build our wealth, I don't tell them how I'm going to build my wealth. I mean, I ask them how they build theirs. Even if they're a smaller player, I can still learn a lot from them. Someone who owns. So as far as equity goes, we each have multiple 7 figures in equity in our portfolio. Difference between us and some of the smaller players, they have 7 figures of equity. They could have even less equity than us, but they have no debt. That is a completely different business cycle than we've been through. If you have a $3 million net worth fully leveraged and someone has a $2 million net worth with no debt, someone could argue that they're in a better position than you are. They don't have as much risk as you do. I can learn a lot from someone who's played the game, even at a smaller level, and built maybe less wealth or more wealth if they have no debt or less debt. So there's a lot of things, if you can get a takeaway from every conversation you have on how they play the game a little differently than you did, you'll grow. But to think that even if someone's smaller or the same size, that they haven't done stuff we haven't would be just wrong.
Ask where we can find info on the mentorship. It's at themultifamilystrategy.com, or you can message me at Christian Osgood on Instagram and we can connect there.
Yep.
Sonoy Mishra, how would you find properties on market that make sense? Most markets, this is a great question for us. We do a lot of on market.
Yeah.
Most markets around where I live are really expensive and probably can't be seller financed in Crexie or LoopNet.
I would argue that they probably can be seller financed, and price is not a function of the ability to seller finance.
Yep. We bought some deals at an excellent price point. We've also bought some deals that are overpriced.
Some people are under the impression that price is the most important thing. Price only matters If you sell, yeah, or you can't afford to hold it.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't afford to hold it, yeah, price matters. But if you plan on selling, then yeah, you need to get a good price. But price is irrelevant if you hold it forever and you can structure the debt where your tenant's paid off. It literally doesn't matter. You could buy a 1% cap rate deal if you could borrow at half a point interest only for 100. There's just so many more metrics to it. You could buy a deal for 100 million if NOI was $1 million, as long as you had it at a 0.5% interest only. Stretched out for a super long period of time, the price literally does not matter. Do it for a 100-year note, you're going to be dead, and you're just going to cash flow $500,000 a year. Price does not matter, especially if it's just listed on the internet. Figure out how to make the debt work for you. The only reason I think price matters is because they're playing the conventional box where you have to get appraisals that are based on cash flow. If you dictate what the cost of capital is, a seller finance or private debt, it doesn't matter.
No, you can also just have a deal like the duplex is one where you just won on price. The term was 7% interest only, which is fine, but we didn't just dominate terms. That one, it was a great price. We bought a deal that makes sense at a great price. It's just one of many inputs. If you kind of want easy mode for finding deals on LoopNet and Crexy, everyone who uses a bank who doesn't get this creative finance game is subject to appraisal. They can't buy stuff if the bank doesn't like the deal. Banks care about price. So if you're buying a deal and you find something that's been on LoopNet, say for 100 days, and they're stuck on their price, all you have to do, and Caleb and Chuck are masters of this, all you do is you look at the price and you go, okay, looks like they're stuck on this price because this property hasn't moved. Okay, at what interest rate does this cash flow enough for me to get a return for my investors? How long of a time period do I need to pull this off? Then they write an offer that says, hey, here's your price. You need to hold a contract at this interest for this time. It is the easiest math. And that is the low-hanging fruit for a lot of people, because when you can give people their price that they're stuck on and no one else can do this because they don't understand the creative finance game, you can just buy on market deals all day.
Now we'll give everybody a quick playbook for something we don't do, but you could do. We don't syndicate.
Yep.
People syndicate and they're like, okay, I want to get a 2x multiple on everybody's money.
I love this.
Yeah. You buy an asset for $1 million and you sell it for $2 million. People are like, okay, you double your money. Well, great. Well, what happens if you put 40%? What happens if you put 10%? Your returns get ridiculous. If I buy a deal for $1 million, and let's say I was syndicated, I'm not, but let's say we did, 10% down on that deal is $100,000. If I get the asset to be worth $1.1 million net of my selling costs, we double investor money. Most people are putting $300,000 to $400,000 down on a deal like that. And if they're buying like really big scale deals, so their $300,000 to $400,000 turns into $400,000 to $500,000 instead of 1 to 2. Instead of doubling their money, they get like a 33 to 40% return on, or a 25% return on their capital. It sucks. If you are playing the syndication game, you buy a $10 million asset and you can get them to finance it with $1 million down. You only have to get it to be worth $11 million net of fees to double people's money instead of getting it to go up 30, 40%. If you're going to syndicate, this is an opportunity where I don't see a lot of people doing it on a really big scale.
Yeah.
Or you can just figure out how to JV it, or just figure out how do I write a check.
Yeah. I like playing the game for what, this is just me personally, because we could make a lot of money syndicating, and that is a model that works. And that's an appropriate use of syndication, where you can get these crazy leverage points. The reason I don't like doing that, and this personal preference, is I like simplicity. I like having JVs with a few partners as opposed to having a whole bunch of people on the deal.
And it's cool because nobody else is doing it.
And it's fun to just scale at a pace where I'm like, how much capital can we raise with 1 or 2 people? It puts us in a position, because what I like to do is we get a deal done, we do a buyout, and all of our early investors, their money grows. And when we use the same investor pool to buy the next few deals, we keep multiplying the same people's money. It just kind of keeps you competitive and goes, how much can we make other people so that I can reinvest with those same partners without bringing new people in? And that game is really fun.
I bought the flip with my buddy Paul. He made 80 grand. I think he had 20 or 30 in it. So but it was a great return. We each had 5 figures in the deal. But he made it 80 plus his money in. He paid his taxes, but he had 100 grand of that. He profited 80,000. Well, he then rolled his total of 100 into the 38, and we turned the 100 grand into 200 grand. And eventually we'll turn the 2 into 4, and these people just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Put yourself in a box, or we just have to, we multiply their money from nothing. You know, they did 20, 30 grand deal to 100, and we take the 100 and turn it into just grow everybody else to.
Don't have a whole bunch of extra marketing. We don't have a bunch of SEC funds. I like
By a bunch, we don't have any.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the way that we play the game. However, if you want to syndicate, there's nothing inherently wrong with syndication. We like to kind of poo-poo syndication on
Just
this
because
channel.
it gets, no, if you're going to do it, it's easier to multiply 10% down than it is to multiply 40%.
That is the basic math, no matter what strategy.
Yep. All right. I can start conversations with the owner so it doesn't come off as salesy. Be a human. This is a lesson I learned from my mama. Be a good human. So if you're just trying to push an agenda, you're going to come off as salesy. If you're being genuine, you're being honest, transparent, say, hey, I don't know how I would do this. That's what I did. I don't know how I would do this. I'm curious how you got started. Never bought in Moses Lake. What do you recommend I do? Or how would you recommend I go about doing something that you've done? And that's what I ask in the coffee meetings, but I just want to repeat what they've done. It is genuine. It helps me get to my goal. You think about the circle drill. We're going to get the circle, square, and the 5 questions on our page for free because we just should. I think we have some videos, but we don't have the actual 1 pager on it. If you map out where you're coming from, where you're going, and why you're going there, what changes for you when you get there, you can connect with a lot of people on a really deep level. That is what I do to not come off as salesy because it's genuine. It's where I'm coming from, my past, where I'm going, like what are my goals, and what changes when I actually get there. It's the why. If you can convey that, you're not going to come off as salesy. If you're saying, I just want to buy a property, you're a seller. If you coin people as sellers, not owners, you're going to come off as sales. That's why we don't refer to people as sellers unless it's on the MLS. They're just an owner. I'm cold calling them. They're not a seller ever.
Now, if you want a really good mental practice, just get in the habit of not thinking of sellers as owners. Like if you catch yourself saying seller, just stop and go, I mean owner. If you get that verbiage down, the way you speak dictates the way you think. It's a weird little mental trick, but I promise you, you're going to get way further if you just take the word seller out of your vocabulary. Unless you're talking about a past transaction where it's like, this is the person who sold. That's the only thing that makes you a seller. You have completed the sale. Anyone else is just an owner. Think of them that way. Let's see here. Rob comments, you need to convince Millennial Mike there's a better way than Gary, Indiana.
Millennial Mike, there's a better way than Gary, Indiana.
There's real estate everywhere and someone has to own it. He has some systems in Gary, Indiana. Millennial Mike, if you're watching this, the one thing you need to do, in my opinion, and scale.
Oh yeah, that too.
He can buy bigger in Gary, Indiana by a lot.
Oh yeah, you can buy bigger.
You can do, and also buy a Boulder. Back to Gary, Indiana is the murder capital of the U.S. Can you buy in a better market? Possibly. I haven't looked at the analytics for Gary to know what the income growth and population growth is. But if Gary and Indiana is cleaning up, which I don't know if it is, but if it is improving and people consistently move there, and you're early to the game and buying a lot of the rental properties, that could be a fantastic market. The one thing I do think he should do is he is very capable of buying a lot more. I would tell him, buy a heck of a lot more of Gary, Indiana. If you're going all in, go all in.
Scale.
Yep.
If the deed is recorded with the county and then the price is recorded, the taxes revalue, correct? Even with owner carry. It depends. So there's a couple ways to do this, and we've done this, and we've done some videos in the mentorship that show you how this works. You can do a prom note deed of trust with seller financing, and that's going to transfer the way we've done it with warranty. Where we go on title, and the property owner, at that point, the seller gets taken off the title, and they have a lien that is recorded, and the price is recorded. You can also do a real estate contract, which gets recorded instead of a warranty contract of sale, where you got the seller. Then you've got buyer 1 and buyer 2, and buyer 1 has equitable title. That's us as the buyer. And then you have, this is also how it works in title theory state. You have equitable title and legal title, and the seller retains legal title. So they're also listed as buyer number 2 on, at least in Grant County, that's how they get listed. They're still there. And instead of a warranty deed, it gets recorded as a contract of sale. It doesn't always show the price. You can also do it where the owner records the contract of sale. We've done this on a few deals. It doesn't always show the price. There's also states that are non-disclosure states where they don't have to disclose debt, price, and there's a whole bunch of there's some states that are really hard to get info on, and not all of it gets shown. That said, the taxable value isn't necessarily based off the price. They'll send a questionnaire, but when I first bought my Quincy 12, the taxable value was like 480. Year after that, it jumped to 960. I bought it for $1.1 million. I said that's BS, and they dropped it down to like 500. It's not always tied to the price. Will they look at it? Will they reevaluate it? Sure. However, you can typically fight it, and I fought it, and I got it reduced by almost half.
Crazy.
It is crazy, but it works.
Texas, and they got nowhere. But you
Texas
never know
and-
unless you ask.
Texas taxes.
Texas taxes.
Oh, all right.
All right.
More questions. Let's rock and roll. We go till the question stop or my phone dies.
Last week, we only went like 32 minutes. No one had any questions. This is a fantastic week. Thank you, everyone, for
Appreciate everybody.
I really do. Levon asked, when I met with an owner and told him my goals, the owner asked me what I currently do for a living. Told him at the moment my strategy is buying deals from brokers that are listed on the market. Is that okay?
Is that your goal to buy deals, or is your goal to build a life where you don't have to do anything for a living? Like, you should really establish what your target is. I would say, maybe the goal is I want to live a life where I can support family. And to do that, I realized I have to buy about 20 apartment units. When that happens, I can take care of my mom. Circle, Jill. What is the actual goal? And then what's the means to get there? And then what changes? I would really think about how you want to map that out and how you want to present that.
It takes some practice. If you're like me, you'll probably overword it the first few times, but you get this practice, you map this out, and you can go, okay.
And I've practiced this for 3.5 years. So
Yeah. And you should be able to tell this really, really fast. And you can do it in long story form. If you guys ever watch anything by Kevin O'Leary, he does this great job of he shares the same story all the time of how he got into entrepreneurialism.
pick that up.
Yep, exactly. Works as an ice cream scooper. Boss told him, hey, you got to scoop up this or scrape up this gum. He's like, I'm a scooper, not a scraper. I don't want to do that. Then he got fired. He's like, well, screw the 9 to 5.
That wasn't my job.
Great, funny story, quick, easy to tell. You should be able to tell a lot of your stuff like that. So it's like, hey, I want to buy deals. It's like, okay, let's define that into a story. I am trying to get to financial freedom for this reason, whatever that goal is. Why is that goal important? For Cody, great example there. Hey, I want to get financial freedom real estate so I can provide for my mom.
And now I built fast forward, I built a
Yep.
portfolio that's going to allow me to completely renovate her house, and then we'll turn that into a rental, and then I'll get her a condo, and she'll have the rental house.
Yep. If anyone's familiar with the school district in all of Washington, but specifically Greater Seattle area, my wife was a kindergarten teacher. In the last few years, that's really declined. But YouTube doesn't cancel me. I won't say any more on that. But it's really not where she wanted to be long term. So my goal financially was I want to invest in rental properties, and I have to scale beyond one duplex at a time, because my wife's situation of wanting to have financial freedom and the ability to maneuver is limited by how fast I can figure out how to play this game.
One a lot of time works, but 10 also works.
Yeah. So when I talk to people, it's look at one duplex at a time is inching us there, but I want to figure out how to get to where you were at. And the only way I know to do that is to get coffee and ask you where you're at. So if I'm communicating my story, what do you do for a living? I am buying rental properties to retire my wife. Now I've done that. And she works for our company, and she ups the scale, and we hit new goals. But just tell them something that's true and something that is an engaging story that follows that circle, and you'll be just fine.
Oh, where do you find private money? Well, private money comes from private people. And the way you get in the room with people is you find people that are in the space, in the real estate space. It could be through meetups, could be calling these owners. We've had owners that have funded our deals, and you build a relationship with them. But if you think you're going to get that without doing these steps and building relationships with people, you're wrong. You have to build relationships with people in the space. Could be from events, could be from conferences, could just be property owners.
Yep. And they also ask, how else would I find money if I only have capital of $5,000? Well, congratulations. You have almost twice as much Cody had when he started.
And you get a lot more money than 70%. You're in a great spot. I don't know how old you are. I don't know what you do for work, but I do know you have some money saved up. Good for you. Now you got to go meet with the people. Just forget you even have the money. Just go meet with people. Learn how they got to where they're at. You don't want the money. You want the freedom, and the freedom comes with cash flow. Right now you don't have cash flow is what it sounds like. So you got to meet with people that have it, learn how they got it, and then ask for help to repeat it.
Yep. The money part's the last one. Again, deal, debt, equity. You don't have the deal yet. You haven't figured out what the debt is, so you don't know how much money or what the money looks like until you are there.
Todd buys houses, Michigan. I'm adding 20 units to my portfolio this year.
Awesome.
I'm gonna guess it's in Michigan.
What
What strategy do you use to locate owners? So what you're gonna do, go on our YouTube page, look up how to find any property owner ever. That is how you do it.
It's like an 8-minute video. It's super quick.
That is how you do it.
And it's still what we do today. Even with some really awesome software, we use CoStar for stuff. At the end of the day, nothing replaces hopping on Google Maps and finding the properties.
And that is our last question.
On both platforms,
Yeah.
we did it.
All right, we made it in an hour and 5 minutes. We appreciate everybody joining the live, both on Instagram and on YouTube.
Final disclaimer, we have the event 20th, 21st, and 22nd at the Robin Hood. That is actually starting to fill up. So there's not a ton of spaces left. If you are interested in joining, I think we have 4 cabins left. I'll double check that. No one booked in the last 2 hours. If you are thinking about going, we would love to have you there. We have brokers, lenders, maintenance men, Cody, Christian, all on site.
I think I can remember the phone number. I think 360-490-8168. 360-490-8168. Christian's going to verify that. I usually can remember phone numbers.
So that's the number that Cody's good.
490-8168. Boom, I remembered. Okay.
Yep.
That's the phone number. Shoot them a text. That's going to be Hannah. Hannah's part of our PM team. She's phenomenal. She is the youngest female resort owner on planet Earth.
We've been able to find, and we are pretty good at finding people. Cody Reb asked what time the event is. It's going to start. That is
Friday evening.
Yep.
You can check in after 3 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time, and you leave before 11 a.m. on Sunday. We are buying dinner on Friday and Saturday, breakfast on Saturday, and that's it.
most of the cabins have hot tubs. The person at the end of that phone is Hannah Caldwell. She will get you booked. But
and again, she's the youngest female resort owner that you'll probably ever talk to.
Yep.
So she's a baller. The people on our team are ballers, and if you want to become part of that, get in the room and you learn how people got to where they're at. So you can also ask her how she got started.
but we really haven't been pushing this as hard as we usually market. We are now trying to fill it. So I'm going to say,
be there or be square.
Yeah, by Friday they're going to be full. So sign up now. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you guys all next Wednesday.
And please subscribe to the channel.
Cody and Christian, Multifamily Chat.
293 people saw that. Not bad.